Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming along to our little webinar. And thank you also for accommodating our little change in time there. Unfortunately, that couldn't be avoided. So what we're going to do is, over the next half hour, we're going to go through the basics of our system. I can see we've got quite a few people in this morning, and I'm guessing we'll probably have a mix of people who have never seen the system before, and some people who have who are actually on a current trial. We do a 30-day trial, so there'll be a mix of people there. What I'm going to do though is take everybody through the basics, show you exactly what the system can do, and what you can maybe use it for in your own nurseries. Just before we get started, we've got somewhere on your screen, you should have a little chat window somewhere that will allow you to send me a message. So if you've got any questions at all, write them in there and we'll try and get back to you. I do want to try and stick to 30 minutes though. I know everyone's busy, and especially at this time of year, you're all getting ready to go on holidays and stuff. So we're going to keep to 30 minutes, and if I don't manage to get to your question, I'll get back to you by email. I am recording this session as well, so you will be able to. What I'll do is I'll send out the link to the video later on today as well, so that everybody gets a chance to see that and show it perhaps to your teams as well. Excuse me, and I also have a little bit of a cough, so I do apologise for that. Now, what I'm going to do is currently share my screen with you now. So what you should be able to see in just a second is my screen. So what you're looking at here is the website of Arbor Green Nursery, and if I can maybe just take a little bit of time to explain where learning journals came from. So myself and my wife Natalie, we have our own nursery, Arbor Green Nursery up in Edinburgh, and a few years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago, we realised that taking observations of children was a very time-consuming process, especially to do it to the standards that Natalie wanted it done to, a local authority wanted it done, and the Care Inspectorate, so our equivalent of Ofsted. And it was just a very time-consuming and expensive process, and we thought there must be a better way to do it. So we had a look around, and we couldn't find anything that met the needs that we wanted to do, so we decided to build our own one. We did that, and shortly afterwards we realised, or shortly afterwards we got an inspection, and the inspectors said that we should perhaps share this with other people too. So that's kind of where we've got to at the moment. So where most of you will have seen already is our website there, Learning Journals. So that's probably where you sign up to this webinar from, but we offer a 30-day free trial for everybody, and gives you a chance to really see how the system works. On this tab here, I've got an actual demonstration account for our system. So this is what you're looking at now, is the actual Learning Journals system. Now, what I've got here is set up for a typical private nursery. So in a private nursery, you'd have a baby room, a toddler room, and a preschool room. The important thing to remember about the system is that it is customizable and you can tailor it to your nursery. So it doesn't matter how many rooms you have or what names your rooms are, you can tailor it to that as well. The rooms are really just a way of organizing the children's profiles. So these pictures can be changed, and these titles down here can be changed as well. If I click on our preschool room here, we'll be able to see all the preschool children. So in our demonstration account, I've only got 6 or 7 children here. If you have more than that, you would just scroll down and there will be many more added down here. There is no limit to the number of children that you have, number of child profiles, and there's no limit to the number of staff members or parents that you have on the system as well. So you can keep adding these as many as you want. Each children, there's some basic information around each child here. We've got the room they're in, and we've got who their key person is. Now you might notice a wee difference here. This child says key person, this child says key worker. So what the system does, it will decide, depending on which curriculum you're following, because in Scotland we tend to use key workers. In England, you're more into key people. So that's what we have there. So this child is on the EYFS curriculum. From this page, I can jump into different rooms if I want to. So I can go and see who's in my baby room or my toddler room, and I can focus on a particular staff member's key children as well by doing this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to focus on this child here to begin with. This child, Abby, is set up on our EYFS curriculum. So within the system, we've got multiple curricula. This child's on the EYFS, and in that we've got all the different development matter statements in here. We also have many other curricula available. So we've got the Curriculum for Excellence in Scotland. We've got the Pre-Birth to 3. We're just about to get the Northern Ireland curriculum on here as well. We've got various alternatives to Curriculum for Excellence for different Scottish local authorities. We've got a Froebelian curriculum in there too, and a pared down one for childminding. What you're seeing here in the profile are the child's observations. So this is an example of an observation up here, and we can scroll down and we can see all the previous observations that have been taken for this child. We can just scroll down and down and down. It works chronologically, so we've got the newest observations to the top, and what you can do is scroll down and go back in time and see all this children's previous observations. I'll scroll back up the top here and focus on this particular observation up the top. So we've got the date the observation was created or taken, the curriculum that this child is following, the curricular area that this particular observation applies to, and in this box we've got the description that was added by the staff member. So this description here is the only bit that the staff member actually has to write in. Everything else is kind of done for you. You've got the name of the staff member down here that took this observation. We've got a section for next steps. So if you want to set a next step based on what you've seen the child do, you can do that, and I'll show you how that works. And we've got a comment section as well. So comments can be left by parents or children or staff. We've also got an extra tab up here, which will show you the different statements from your particular curriculum that have been added to this one. So we can see as this child's following the EYFS, we've got different statements from across different age bands that have been added to this one. And we've got a traffic light rating system as well. By default, it's red, amber, green. You can actually change that, and I'll tell you a bit more about that as well. The system is designed to work on tablets or iPads or an Android tablet. It doesn't have to be a specific brand. It doesn't have to be have any special requirements. All you need to be able to do is access the internet. So that's important. Especially if you're going to be using tablets, you need to have Wi-Fi access in your nurseries as well. Excuse me. But it looks exactly the same on a tablet as it does on this screen here. And if we were to take an observation now on Abby, what we would do is we would open up our profile and then click on Add Observation for this child. This takes us into the observation creation process, and from the very, very beginning, what we wanted to make sure was that the system was usable by everybody, that it didn't have complicated features that people can't use. I know there are varying levels of technical ability in nurseries, and we wanted to make sure that everybody is able to use this, and we've tried to make it as simple as possible. Hopefully you can see how easy this is. So the first thing you're asked to do is choose the curricular area, and we do that from this drop-down menu. So you can see all the different curricular areas, and if this child was following a different curriculum, these would be different. So in Scotland, we'd have English and literacy, numeracy, health and well-being, etc. So I'm going to pick one here, just as an example. In the next box, you describe your observation. So this is the part that the practitioner has to write in, and I do like to point out that the quality of the observation still relies on the input of the practitioner. So this system will not make you take better observations. You still have to really think about the descriptions, making sure they're evaluative as well as descriptive, and that you're doing really good content when you're creating an observation. I will, for my example here, I'm going to do something very basic and say that Abby was learning to count to 10. So this is something very, very basic, and you wouldn't have this as your observation. But for the purpose of this, I just want to keep it simple. The next step, you can add in a next step in this box down here. So if you, based on the description above, if you want to set a goal or a next step, you can do that in this box. So our example was Abby was learning to count to 10, but it might be that Abby was getting the numbers around the wrong way, or she was missing some numbers out. So her next step here could be consistently count to 10, getting the numbers in the right order and not missing any out, for example. You can actually choose to track a next step as well with this box, and I'll show you how the next step tracking works a little later on. But not every observation will need a next step, and not every next step will need to be tracked. So you don't actually have to enter anything into the next steps section. That content is optional. The date and time of the activity is automatically displayed down here. So this happens automatically. But if it was an observation that you'd actually got evidence for previously, so maybe yesterday or the day before, you can click on this and choose a different date depending on when the observation happened, and the same was the time as well. You're next asked to upload evidence. So if I click on this upload photo button, excuse me, if we were using an iPad or a tablet and we click this choose file button, it would then ask us if we want to take a new photograph or upload an existing one. Now on my computer here, it's just going to search through my computer's memory. I'm just going to pick some random pictures of animals here. But if you're using a tablet, I didn't pick a file. If you're using a tablet, it would, as I say, ask if you wanted to upload a new image or an image from the camera. And you can upload up to 4 photos per observation. I'm just going to do a couple more here. Now you can see how quickly these are uploading here. Now your speed will depend a lot on your internet access, but generally photos, and especially if you're taking with something like an iPad, are very low in size, and they'll upload very, very quickly for you. And you can see maybe how this would really help speed the observation process up, because instead of having to get a digital camera and take your photographs and attach it to the computer, download them, print them out, all that sort of thing, it just works like this. And we can reorder these photographs if we want to make sure, and it's really good for capturing a process. So the first image could be Abby with a blank sheet of paper, then the next one she's making some marks, and then by the end of it you've actually got the work that she's created. Now you might have noticed, if I just delete our dragon here and upload another photo, you might have noticed you can actually upload videos as well. So this isn't available on all accounts, but it's going to be available shortly. Really excited about bringing this to the system, because instead of a photograph, which is great when combined with a description, a video is such a good way of getting the child's voice into the observation. So you can really display evidence of how they interact with their peers, their ability with a certain activity, that sort of thing. So video is going to be a huge bonus to the system, and that's coming soon. There's an extra charge for videos, but you don't have to have them if you don't want to. So anyway, we've got our description, we've gathered our evidence, we're ready to move on to the next stage. And the next stage is about connecting it to the curriculum. So this child, as I said, was on the EYFS, and we're in the maths section of the EYFS here, and down below we can see all the different statements that are shown in the EYFS here. They're all broken down into their age bands. So we choose whichever one applies to the child, to the activity that we're doing for this child. So here's an example here: recite numbers to 10 in order to 10. So that works out well for mine. So we can add them with these green buttons here. Now you might notice these numbers down the side. So we've got 1, 2, 1, 1, 0. What this is telling us is that this child has had one observation linked to this statement already. They've had 2 observations previously linked to this one. This one here with a 0, we've got no evidence at all that they've experienced this in the nursery. You can add as many different statements as you want with these green buttons. So if I click a couple more, and in addition, we can actually go across curricular areas as well. So as I said, we're in maths and numbers here at the moment, but this could equally apply. An activity can span multiple curricular areas. So perhaps it's something to do with literature and reading as well. We can click on literature and reading up here. We're shown the different statements down here, and we can add in some of these ones as well. And I'll choose another one from self-confidence as well. Now, I'm picking random ones here. Hopefully you gathered that. But as I say, you can have as many of these as you want. So when you've selected all your outcomes, they'll appear at the top of your page here. And you can see the different statements that I chose. And before you move on, you're asked to rate the child's understanding of what they've just done for this statement. By default, it's a red, amber, green. traffic light system, but you can change this in your settings. So you could have this as emerging, expected, exceeding, or developing, consolidating, secure, or bronze, silver, gold, and you can change all these colors as well. So that's possible to do if you want to. Make your selection with these buttons down here based on your professional judgment and how well you know that child and what you've just seen them do. Then you move on to the next stage. Now, for a child following the EYFS, the next stage is the characteristics of effective learning. So here we've got the 3 characteristics, the 3 categories, and we again just choose with these green buttons what they do. If this child was following the curriculum for excellence, this would be displaying I can statements, so it'd be slightly different here. But it works the same way as before. You add the different statements that you want to with these green buttons down the right hand side here. Step 3 is optional. You don't actually have to make a selection here if you don't want to. Once you've done that, you move on to the next stage. This is actually the final step of creating this observation, and what we're being shown here are 2 columns. We've got the observation we've just observed, so Abby was learning to count to 10, and in the right hand column we've got outstanding next steps for this child. So if you think back to our first stage of creating this observation, we had an opportunity to create a next step and to track that next step. Any tracked next steps will subsequently appear for every observation at this stage. So if we had tracked our next step, it would appear in our next observation on this page here. And what the system is asking is, does the observation we've just created, Abby was learning to count to 10, does it achieve any of the next steps that are available for this child? Now, normally you would have probably several more next steps than the one that we've got here. The only next step we have here is encourage Abby to perform stories and use her imagination using our drama area. However, you'd probably have many more observations than this and a lot more opportunities to add next steps. If the observation does connect to a previous next step, you can connect them using this add button here. And what this will do, in a separate function on the site, our next steps tracker, it will give you information on when the next step was identified, when it was achieved, and what the child did to achieve that next step. So you've actually got evidence of progression for that child for that particular next step that you've set. I'll show you where the next steps lie in just a second. You don't have to make a selection, obviously, so if a next step isn't being achieved, you don't have to use these add buttons over here. You then choose whether you want to publish the observation, save it for later, or delete it. Now, if you publish the observation, it will be available to parents if they happen to log in. So a parent can get access to their own child's profile only. But if you were to publish an observation, it would be available for them to view. So don't publish anything that you're not quite ready for a parent to see. Even if it has been published, you can go back and edit it. You can make changes, and you can change your photographs and your description, all that sort of thing. So it's not set in stone if it's been published. You can choose to save it for later. So if it's saved for later, it won't be available to parents to view, and you can then go back and make changes and update it, and until you're happy with it, then you would set it to published. A really handy feature for everybody, and I know this is very popular, is publish this observation for other children. So say we've got a group activity, and the example I always give is in our nursery, a fireman came in to give a talk on fire safety. So we publish this observation for other children. Click on the finish button. The system will ask us who was involved in this activity. So here we're displayed all the children in this particular room. And what the system asks is who was involved in this. So we'll say that, let's say that Stuart, Alistair, and Toby here, they were all involved in this particular activity. So instead of us having to copy the same thing out to them, we can use the system to do that for us. You do have to be careful with this though, because if we think back to our description, which here is Abby was learning to count to 10, if we were to copy as is, it would then say Abby and Stuart's profile, Alistair's and Toby's. So we want to make sure this is personalized. And a couple of ways you can do that. So you could just make a generic statement in here, a group of children were learning to count to 10, or you could follow the instructions down below, which says replace the child name in the box with the code first name. So if I replace Abby here with the code first name in these square brackets, when we copy this over, it will replace this code with the first name of each child. So it would then say Stuart was learning to count to 10, Alistair was learning to count to 10, and Toby was learning to count to 10. Hopefully that's clear for everybody. should reiterate, if anyone has any questions at all, please do enter them in the chat box there, and we'll get to them. So yeah, so now we've replaced our child's first name there. It won't take care of gender, so you do have to be careful with his and her and he and she and all that. But once you've done that, click begin. That copies them over. And once it's finished, we can go back to the observations for our child. So we can now go back to Abby's observations. So here we go. We've got Abby was learning to count to 10 in these curricular areas that I'd chosen. So self-confidence in her literature and reading and maths and numbers. Abby was learning to count to 10. Now, even at this stage, I can go and I can update or amend this description. So I can say, but missed out the number 7. And actually, if I make a wee mistake there, what you'll see is quite handily, if you're using a modern browser, we've got a spell check, which is quite handy for a lot of people I know, certainly in our nursery. We can add as much as we want into there. We can view all the different photographs that we added down here. And we can use this tab to see all the different outcomes and experiences that we've added to this particular observation. And you can see those there. Now that is the process of taking an observation. I've probably taken about 20 minutes to go through that there in depth. But once you've taken an observation 2 or 3 times, you'll quickly see that it can be done in 2 or 3 minutes. It's very, very simple to do. There's nothing scary. You can't go and wipe out a whole child's profile with a couple of clicks. You can't go and send emails to all the parents by accident. There's nothing to be scared of in the system here. I know some people do have a little bit of anxiety about using new technology, but I promise you it's very, very simple to use. At this stage in the profile, what we can do if we want to, we can use these buttons up the top as filters. So if I want to see only the maths and numbers observations for this particular child, I can click on that button and that's going to show me only all the maths and numbers ones. And you can see how easy that is to do. If anyone's got any questions on the actual creation of the observations, please do put them into the chat window. So we have a question there from Julia. What about the photos that were uploaded for Abby against what was uploaded for Toby, Stuart and Alistair? So if we have copied this over, so we copy this over to those 3 other children there, everything gets copied over. So that is important for you to bear in mind. So all these photographs here, in fact, if I go into, was it Toby, Stuart and Alistair? So if I go into one of their profiles now, now they're following different curriculums. So by default, I don't think we'll see that. So let's go to Alistair. Now I need to choose a different curriculum for Alistair up here. So let me see his EYFS observations. There we go. So we can see here it says Alistair was learning to count 10, but you can see all the photos are exactly the same. Now everything is exactly the same, so you do need to bear that in mind when creating an observation. Now, especially when concerning yourself with permissions from parents, because if we take a photograph of Alistair or a group of children that Alistair is in and it's copied over to multiple children's profiles, his photograph or a photograph of him will appear in other children's profiles and their parents will be able to see that photograph. So you need to make sure that in terms of your permissions, you have all that with parents. Now on our website, we do have some resources. If you scroll all the way down the bottom, we've got some resources down here and we've got a letter to parents, which you're more than welcome to use as a template and you can amend that. Same with our policy template. And I think we've got a risk assessment on here as well somewhere, but you do need to bear that in mind when doing multiple observations. Susanna's come in with another question. Are children able to access system and can you print from it? So yes, you can print from it. At any time you can convert this profile to a PDF. We encourage you not to print too much. The idea is that you're trying to get rid of a lot of paper, but you can if you want to. So you can use this button here, convert this profile to PDF. And what that will do is make this into a printable file that you can then email or print out or do whatever you want for that parent. Your other question, are children able to access? So yes. So where if you're using an A4 ring binder, for example, children can go up and pull that off the shelf and look at that many times, and you want them to be able to have that similar sort of access. So what we've got here is our child view up the top. So if you see the switch to child view link up the top here, if I click on this and enter my PIN, so every member of staff has their own password and PIN combination. What this does is it reloads the system in a kind of read-only view, and it's kind of similar to what a parent can see, although parents only access their own children's profiles. So If we go into this Abby's profile again, so we can let Abby loose now without her being able to delete anything, without her being able to add any observations. She can now scroll through here and she can see all the different photographs and the things that she's done. She can look through all that, and the same with all her friends as well. The way we manage this in our nursery is we have one or two tablets set in child view that children are able to access. It works really good if you've got a smart board or a smart table. I don't know if any of you got the smart, the big tables. I think it's Root 2. I think supply those. They're really good. But smart boards, anything like that works really well as well. Make sure you get your PIN number correct as well, and don't forget that. So the system's reloaded now, and we're able to take observations again. A couple of other things I want to go through with you, from a management point of view, is if I click on our home tab up here, what this is showing us is recent observations that have been taken in this account. So we can see that here's the observation we took for Abby here just a minute ago. We copied it over to her three friends, Toby, Stuart, and Alistair. So with this view, you can just get a summary of what's been happening in your account. You can focus on a particular child if you want to. So if I only want to see, for example, Anya's observations this month, I can click on Anya's name, and these are the observations that have been done for Anya this month. If I want to see a particular staff member's observations, I can use this drop down here. So let's say that I want to focus only on Angela's observations. We can see actually Angela's not taken any observations in June this month. This is a really good way for you to monitor which staff are taking their observations, which aren't, and also to monitor the quality of their observations. Next to our observations tab, we can also use different rooms and date ranges and all that sort of thing as well. Next to this, we've got our notifications tab, and a child will appear on this list if they have had no observations in over 7 days. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing to appear on this list because it could be holidays, it could be illness, but what it does is it will help you avoid the situation where you have a quieter child, a child that seems to stay in the background a lot more, and you'll be notified by the system that they have not had an observation, and it will just highlight that to you. So if you were to get an inspection, you would know well in advance which children didn't have an observation. So when it gets the likes of 46 days, there's a problem there. Obviously, these ones here are, when you get to 388 days, Evan's been missing for some time. Parent comments are in the next tab. So the reason we designed the system in the first place was it was a way to enable practitioners to take observations efficiently and easily and quickly, and that was the whole motivation for doing it. But very quickly, what we saw is that the main benefit of this system is enabling parents to access their children's profiles that they couldn't before, and engaging them with what we're doing in the nursery. There's only one parent comment here because this is a test account. This parent, Andrew Smith, isn't real. In our nursery, we have literally hundreds of comments every month because parents are able to access their profile from wherever they are. They can do it at home, at work, on their phone, on the bus, wherever they happen to be. They can log in and they can leave a comment. And a lot of the comments we receive are along the lines of this: "Well done, Abby, this is great." But a lot of them are really supportive comments, showing that the parents do acknowledge what the staff do. They do acknowledge the hard work that the team put into educating their child and caring for their child. And they're just really nice comments for us to read. And they're obviously also great evidence that we have a strong link between the nursery and the home. So parents, instead of trying to force them to come in and look at the folders, which was a very difficult task, they now have access to that continually. When an observation is taken, a parent is emailed the day after to say, "An observation was taken today, why don't you log in and leave a comment," that sort of thing. And we have literally hundreds of comments every month from parents, and it's really strengthened our bond with our parents as well. A couple of things, I'm probably going to run over time here, unfortunately, so please stick with me if you can. If you can't, I'll send out the link to the video. I do tend to talk a little bit too much when I get into it. So if I want to go back into a child's profile here and have a look at some of the other features, I'm not going to talk about the daily diary today. That is an additional feature that if it's more suitable for younger children. So what it will do is record things like sleeps and nappies, the food they've had, the milk they've had, all that sort of stuff. So if you do have younger children in your nursery, you might be interested in that. It's an additional feature. We've actually so we've got a button down the bottom here, gallery. This is a new feature. So anyone who's on a trial will not see this at the moment. This is a brand new feature we're working on at the moment, and I've never actually used it myself. So I might edit this out of the final video if I have to. But what it should do is it show us all the different photographs for this child, and that works beautifully. So I'm very happy with that. So we can now see, so when you're in a child view, children are obviously not going to be interested in the descriptions and all the different things. So what we've got here are all the photographs that have been taken for this particular child here. We will shortly be adding a sort of download button here so that parents can export all these photographs. And we can see when we click on it, it brings up the observation this was linked to. We can go into our next photograph here. And that's anyone on the webinar here, this is the first time this has ever been seen. So you're getting a sneak peek into the future. So I'm so happy with this. This is really good. And you can see how this would be useful for parents, so the parents can look through the photos just like a big photo album. Excuse me. So I'll go back to Abby's profile here. But other things that we have down here are our learning tracker. So if you remember when we took our observation, we actually, I'm going to go to a child that's got more content in it. That makes more sense. So when we took our observation, we could rate the different statements as red, amber, green. And where that applies to is our learning tracker. So if I click on the learning tracker for this child, it generates a report for this child, and it's based on coverage, that coverage of evidence within the curriculum. This child's following Curriculum for Excellence, so that's why it's slightly differently, but we've got the 8 curricular areas here. This is where, if you're on the UIFS, it would have PSED, literacy, maths, all that sort of things. So at the very most basic, what it's showing you is different coverage and where areas might need more attention. So you can see that for this child, for example, social studies is maybe looking a little bit thin, so we maybe need to try and focus on gathering evidence for that. If you were to compare this with several children to this room, and you could see that health and well-being was maybe not as well supported as others, you could then focus your attention and maybe design some activities so that you've got evidence around that. You can go into further detail with all these as well by clicking on this assessment button here. And when we click on this assessment button, what this will do excuse me, is bring up the different statements for this particular curricular area. So we've got all the different experiences and outcomes for this curricular area. The ones with the view button are ones that we've actually got evidence of. So you can see that we've got one observation linked to this statement, and we can click this view button to see that. This child's been rated green. The ones that say auto mean that the system is making a decision on the rating based on the evidence that's been input. So we've got one observation here that's red, and so the system says this child is red for this one. Now, you may know that this child is actually secure in this now, but you don't have evidence of that. So what you can do is you can overwrite the system and make it green. For ones that you've got no evidence of, and it's unlikely you're going to gather an observation or evidence of every single statement in the curriculum, you can overwrite the system and you can just choose your own ratings here. If you set it to auto, it will make a decision based on what the system does, and it will take it back. So this will just jump back to what the system wants it to do. You can print this out, and we choose to go through this report with parents at parent consultations and parent evenings, and you can look for that for all the different curricular areas as well. The final thing I want to talk about is, and there's so much more we could probably go into here, but I just wanted to make sure we got the basics. The final thing I want to talk about are the next steps tracker. So if I click on this, we'll see the next steps for this particular child. So here we can see that this child has got these next steps outstanding: to use scissors independently and to participate in letter writing activities. So you could print this out if you want to, but it's a great way for staff to keep up to date with what a particular child's working on. And next to this, in this tab, we've got this achievement record. And the ones that are blank here are ones I've actually deleted before in previous demonstrations. But what we've got are the date the observation, the next step was identified, when it was achieved, and we can click on the view button here to see the actual observation that achieved this next step. So here we go, he was a little pen. So again, just a little example one that we've done here. I've run over a wee bit, but if anyone does have any questions, please do put them in the chat box, or you can email me, info@learningjournals.co.uk. If you're not currently on a trial and you do want to get a trial, if you go to our website, which is learningjournals.co.uk, click on this free trial link up here, and that will take you to this form. Fill that out and I'll get your free trial created for you. It says 30 days, but if you do need a little bit more help or a little bit more time, then I'm quite happy to extend that, so don't worry about that. Pricing wise is very, very simple. There's no setup fees. It doesn't depend on the number of devices, excuse me, number of iPads or computers or tablets or whatever it is you have. Most people will be on £275 a year, but if you are a smaller nursery under 20 children, it will be £125 a year. And we've only got a couple of extras. So if you want the daily diary function, that's an extra £50 a year. And if you want videos, just because of the size, a video is obviously quite a lot to store, that's £100 a year. So you can play around with it, see what you want, and do it your own way. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming along. You can also phone me if you need to on the number at the top, 0131 212 5500. Welcome any questions, and your feedback is very important. All the features that we've got here have been created because of feedback from users of the system, and are in our own nursery as well, and that includes parents too. So many thanks for coming along. If you have anything at all, then do get in touch, and I will be sending round the link to this this video this afternoon, so you can share that. You're more than welcome to share that with anyone that needs to see it. Thank you very much. Hope to speak to you all soon. Thank you.